top 8 probably anyway,
Yeah.
even if he wins his next round. If he loses this round, wins the next one. And Brian doesn't want to have to fight against that tiebreaker if he tries to draw next round.
Yeah, if Gary wins, then Brian will still have the best tiebreakers among the 21. So, in good shape. So here we have Gary Wong against Brian Zunter. Gary's on the right playing blue, red, white. He was in the feature match earlier, playing against Brian, playing 4-color mid-range.
Ooh, this deck looks interesting. Let's take a peek. It's got, a little Searing Spear, a little Azorius Charm, a little Counterflux, a little Sphinx Revolution, a little Supreme Bird, a little Thragtusk, and let's not forget the Snapcaster Mages and the Augurs of Boldness.
Yeah, it kind of, at first I thought it was, it's basically like, it looks similar to Melissa DeToro's deck, 4-color Wolf Run, but again, he's not playing cards like Centaur Healer, he's playing Thundermaw Hellkite main, he's got Snapcaster Mages, which I'm not sure Melissa had in her main deck. So interesting to see how this deck plays out.
It really looks like a blue-white-red deck that splashed Thragtusk, actually. And it's got a little bit more aggression with the Thundermaw Hellkites and some more burn spells, but that's kind of like what I'm feeling.
Yeah, it really just looks like, Joe Larson's blue-red-white deck, except he's got Kessig Wolf Run and Thragtusk. I don't even think he has. Does he have Farseek in his deck?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, so he doesn't even have Farseek. So he's basically just playing green for Thragtusk and Kessig Wolf Run, which
worked for Melissa, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are good cards. So
it's pretty interesting in this matchup too, as Thragtusk can be, a kind of difficult card to deal with for blue-white-red from time to time. And Gary's certainly not going to expect to see a Thragtusk after seeing these first 3 lands.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is that his mana doesn't seem that great. I mean, he's got 1 Breeding Pool, 1 Temple Garden, 1 Stomping Ground.
And then 2 Harbors and a Sunpel Grove, so he's on like 6 sources for those Thragtusks. So he's probably just planning to use them in the really late game after a 1 Revelation for like 3 or something like that.
Yeah. But Gary's got a pretty good start. He's got 3 Augur Boluses, which, again, doesn't have a lot of power, but he's been able to hit spells, so eventually Brian's going to have to find a way to deal with them. Meanwhile, Gary's just going to be chipping away at his life total, hoping that cards like Searing Spear and Boros Charm can maybe finish him off in the later game.
Yeah, I really like having an Augur-heavy hand when I'm in the blue-white-red matchups because it lets you create some pressure before you have to start worrying about tapping out.
Yeah.
And that actually adds up a lot. I know I lost a match because I just failed to acknowledge that online once, and it was a little embarrassing.
and it makes all your Restoration Angels that much better.
Yeah.
Which again is a huge card in this matchup.
Brian has concealed his Kessig Wolf Run, so he's not letting Gary know what's up. Doesn't want to accidentally play Greenland until it's a little too late for Gary to know what's going on. Yeah, and the thing is, in round 8, especially if you have a record of like X and 1, you've probably been sitting next to these players throughout the tournament, so you might kind of have an idea of what your opponent's playing by this point in the game. Sure.
But again, I mean, you might as well try to keep it hidden as much as possible because maybe Gary doesn't know exactly what he's up against. It's also, in general, a fantastic habit to just pick up. Yeah. Don't want to give away any unnecessary information. Yeah. One less thing to think about if you just always do it right. Yep. And so they both basically just cast Sphinx of Revelation for 2. Yep. Very slow game developing, but Gary with the pressure. Yeah, Gary still got the pressure. Brian really needs like a Thragtusk here. Good news for Brian, though. Gary doesn't have many counter spells. He has 1 Counterflux as a way that can effectively stop a Thragtusk from entering play. He obviously has ways to deal with it. He's got Unsummon, he's got Mizzium Mortars, he's got Harvest Pyre, Searing Spear. But again, once it comes into play, he's going to get some value out of it. So if he's able to draw a green source, might start to stem some of the bleeding as well as get some pressure out there. Yeah, Brian played Kessig Wolf Run again this turn. That kind of indicates that I imagine he's going to try in Revelation. Yeah, which, it's easy to cast the Thragtusk against 1 Counterflex is a little easier to resolve against someone against a spell where Gary actually has 2 Izzet Charms. So, he's got a little more permission against sorceries and instants than he does against creatures. It's very true. So here we go. Let's see if Gary actually does have the Izzet Charm or not. Looks like he's gonna. I think he has an Izzet Charm, but it looks like he's letting it resolve.
Am I crazy here? That's why I see a reddish card, but I could be
I think
wrong.
that's Boros Charm.
Ah, okay.
It looks like it might be Boros Charm. Yeah, I don't think he would let the...
I don't think he would either. That seems a little...
because,
yeah, you're right. That's a Boros Charm.
Yeah, because, you know, what else is he going to... He can't counter a Supreme Verdict. And at this point, yeah, at this point, the only sorcery you're going to be able to counter is a Sphinx of Revelation. So, it looks like Brian did, in fact, draw Searing Spear. So he has another way to deal with some of those augurs.
Yeah, resolving all these Sphinx of Revelation has also given him plenty of life to just fight back. He's not under the same pressure that he would have been if those got countered.
He also has 2 Restoration Angels, it looks like, which are, again, huge in this type of matchup, you know, because Gary won't be able to attack anymore. Plus, you know, he could just always block and trade with pretty much anything in Gary's deck.
I don't like the Searing Spear during our main phase here. We should have upkeeped it on Gary's turn, so that if he had an Angel, he would have been forced to just tap 4 mana on his own turn to save the augur.
Well, I think he might have been trying... I didn't think he wanted... Maybe he didn't want to discard. It looks like he's got maybe 7 cards in his hand. I'm not sure. He's got some hidden in the back. But then again, I mean, I'd still rather just discard a land than get blown out by a Restoration Angel.
I think you're right. It was his 8th card, but yeah, I would still...
I'd still probably discard a land there. You have 2. I'd rather discard a land than... If Gary did have a Restoration Angel there, that'd be pretty much a blowout. You don't have a counter spell.
Snapcaster Mage coming down. I imagine we'll probably be looking for a trade. One of the nice things about Brian's deck is he knows going late, he has the advantage. Like, he has Keswick Wolf runs, he has Thragtusk. Gary has nothing on par with both of those cards. Like, no answers, no real thing that he can do that's better than that, other than trying to gain infinite life with a Boros Reckoner, which is dicey at best. He's indestructible.
Wow. So they're being very aggressive with these creatures. You know, it's not a lot of power, but Brian does have 2 Restoration Angels in his hand, so I'm surprised that he cares that much about dealing with a 1/3 and a 2/1 right now.
Interestingly here, if Brian should have cast a Searing Spear before he blocked, in order to prevent getting blown out by a Boros Charm. But, you know, Boros Charm's new to these decks. That's the kind of trick that, like, you see it once, you're like, not going to do that again.
Yeah, and again, Gary only has 1 Boros Charm. It's not like, a lot of these lists don't play many Boros Charms. They'll play maybe 2, 3. You don't see a lot of lists running 4 Boros Charms. But again, I mean, Brian's still not in bad shape. He's got Restoration Angel. It just maybe if he had the Snapcaster later on to get back a Sphinx of Revelation, you know, I would have been maybe a little bit more sure of where he's going to be in a couple of turns from now.
Yeah.
But Gary has a Sphinx for 2, which again, these are really they're being very aggressive with casting these spells. I don't think he needs to cast Revelation for 2 there. Maybe he wants to wait a turn. Because he's gonna, obviously Brian doesn't have permission. I mean, Brian's pretty much playing this game like he doesn't have permission. So I think Gary can, if he just reads him, I think it's pretty safe to say that his Revelation is going to resolve. So you can probably get a little more value out of it.
Yeah, the other tricky part for Gary is that puts him to, you know, pretty healthy hand size, and if Brian didn't have spells on Gary's turn, Gary would just be pitching them.
Yeah.
So he's going to take a shock here, which seems fine.
And I know Gary wants to press his advantage here, but you want to be safe that you don't just get blown out by cards like Supreme Verdict and then Thragtusk, you know. Again, he sees the Wolf run. Brian doesn't have green right now, which we talked about. We knew his mana was going to be a little tricky, but he basically wasted an Azorius Charm to get through 1 point of damage. You know,
that's something you only do if you feel way ahead.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have a Thought Scour for the Angel, so he knows the Angel's going to come back down. So it looks like he's Searing Spear. He also has a Snapcaster, so
snaps.
He's going to probably snap.
Boros Charm to get him to 8.
Yeah, so definitely threatening. Oh, interesting. He didn't cast the Boros Charm. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he forgot about the Boros Charm.
Maybe he's playing around Supreme Verdict because he doesn't think he's going to be able to kill him this turn. That's also reasonable. If he has another Snapcaster, like...
But why wouldn't you Snapcaster back the Boros Charm?
Because you can, like, if you aren't killing your opponent this turn and next turn he has Verdict, you just get indestructible again. And...
I understand.
Oh, he has a Harvest Pyre. Well, that's going to take care of Angel quite nicely. I imagine we're going to leave Boros Charm and Revelation, I want to say? Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah. So Restoration Angel dies, drops him down to 1. Oh, but he has a second Angel, so
Yep, that taps him out. So Gary probably you know, can almost smell it at this point.
Looks like Gary has a resto of his own, so he can literally resto whatever he blocked.
And now, if he can resto charm him, yeah, that's it. Resto for
doesn't
Boros,
even need it. Yeah, so
he had
3 snapcasters in a, so he was never in a.
No, don't show him the Thrag Tusks.
I mean, I think it's, yeah, again, you don't need to give away that information, but
that's big.
It's reasonable that Gary would have suspected if he's got green, if he's got Wolf Run, you know.
Suspect is one thing, though, you know.
So, you know, it looked like Gary was playing a little too aggressively, but, you know, his hand apparently was well suited for that style of play. I mean, he had 3 snapcasters, Searing Spear.
I think it's deceptive how aggressive you can be with the blue-white-red deck. I know I see Jerry all the time testing the deck and playing it, and he definitely plays it. I mean, obviously better than me, but also more aggressively. Like I'm much more willing to block and play around stuff, whereas Jerry's much more willing to enter races because he knows how the outcome. You know, he can see the patterns a little better, knows exactly what his opponent's possibly capable of, which. When you play the deck that way, with that kind of information, it really pays off. You can close games out way faster, avoid dying to a lot of peels.
Yeah, and Cedric and I were talking about this earlier. You know, this version of Blue, Red, White is really, I think it gives you a lot more play, especially game 1 against a wider variety of decks because you're just aggressive. You know, like you said, you have the ability to like stop and go, pretty relative ease. You know, just by becoming a more controlling player or being more aggressive, you know, like we saw out of nowhere, you know, he only had 3 power in play, but because of the burn spells and Snapcaster Mage, you know, it's a pretty big life swing. So definitely a deck that allows for a lot of play. And Brian, especially against a deck like Brian, you know, 4-color mid-range, doesn't have a lot of defense and never drew green mana for his Thragtusk, which probably is a whole different game. If he actually draws one of his green sources, not sure Gary can come back from a Thragtusk. He's going to start wasting his burn spells on the Thragtusks, and the life cushion might be too much to overcome. But
it's silly to say, but yeah, like resolving one Thragtusk might have just actually won Brian that game. That looked completely lopsided against him almost the whole time.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I thought Gary was being a little aggressive. But if he's not aware of the Thragtusks, I mean. Maybe it's just the right play. He's like, I got to do what I have to do right now before my opponent draws his green source and starts dropping Thragtusk against me. And after board, it looks like Gary has a pretty standard anti-control package. He's got Negates, Geist of St. Traft, Jace Memory Adept, another Boros Charm. He also has Assemble the Legion, which I haven't seen many people play. But could be actually really good in this matchup because he basically, it's not, I wouldn't say it's another Jace, but it's basically it provides him with inevitability. If he can just cast it on turn 5, he will likely eventually win the game. You know, there's not many cards that Brian probably has in his deck that can deal with an assembly just constantly building.
You're right. In fact, I'd say he has very, very few, except for his own copy of Assemble the Legion, which should match it quite nicely.
Well,
it's very interesting. Their sideboards actually look kind of similar.
Yeah,
if you look at them,
it
very peculiar.
Like, Brian's got 4 Geist as opposed to just 3. So
let me hear you upgrade.
He's got the Assemble. He's got 2 Jace Memory Adepts. Again, no permission, whereas Gary has 2 Negates that he can bring in. So interesting to see what happens here. I wonder if Gary just decides to take out some of the Mizium Mortars, unsummon. Not sure if he wants to bring out the Searing Spear or not.
Sure.
But definitely wants that. I think kind of wants Boros Charm too, because again, it's a great way to deal with Jace if they don't pick it up, which sometimes they choose not to. But with Brian bringing in 4 Geist of St. Trafts, might have the slight edge, especially in this game because he's going to be on the play. Gary doesn't have any Essence Scatters to sort of stop a turn 3 Geist of St. Traft.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have cards like Thragtusk, like Brian does, that can sort of put a bump in the road for Geist. He has Snapcaster Mage, and he has Boros Reckoner and his own Geist, but again, if Brian being on the play, a turn 3 Geist is really huge in this type of matchup. And he just has one more than Gary.
Yeah, if you recall the top 8 of the Pro Tour, that's exactly what did Jerry, and pretty much Joel Larson's Geist just ate him alive.
Yeah, so, game 1, I think if Brian draws a green source, it's a different game, but it's interesting because Gary's got some negates, so he has more permission than Brian does, because Brian has basically 2 counterfluxes, that's it. But, he has a lot of really good threats. Like, he's got Thundermail Hellkite, he's got Thragtusk, he still has Restoration Angels, and he's bringing in 4 Geist Saint Trap. So, negate's not really great against those cards. They're all the great threats that Brian has are creatures. He's got 2 Jace the Memory Depths he's going to bring in, but again, I mean, he's bringing in 4 Geist Saint Traps. So, it'd be interesting to see who has the advantage after board, because all of Brian's good threats are creatures that Gary only has 1 counterflux for.
Yeah, I really like Brian's list in the matchup. I actually considered him a pretty heavy favorite in game 1. If he had drawn that green source, obviously we discussed how it could have been a completely different game. So I think if he hits his mana, like, his deck is incredibly dangerous for Gary. It just has so many high-quality threats. And Blue-White Red's, it's a deck that's built to align itself against, some pretty specific targets, especially in post-boarded games. And Brian is a little all over the place,
Yeah, it's. I think Gary likes playing against decks like Naya Humans or Jund, like strategies that he kind of knows what's coming. He knows what his plan of attack is going to be. Again, he's still a blue-red-white deck, so he can always just try to burn them out. But the thing about Brian is, he's got he's hitting you with Geist, he's hitting you with Thragtusk, and he still has Jace Memory Adept, which can randomly beat you too. So there's just a lot of different things that Gary has to concern himself with, and he only has 1 card, Counterflux, that says no to all of those things, So I think in order for Gary to sort of overcome that, he really needs the tempo, and being on the draw, it's going to be tough this game to sort of regain that. But, either way, he's going to get a 3rd game where he's on the play, and hopefully he draws a Geist and Brian doesn't. So that's one way where he doesn't really care about those Thragtusk as much. But he's going to 6 here, so he's a little behind. See if he's happy with this one, and he keeps, and we're off. So turn 1 Glacial Fortress from Brian.
I see a green land already, Hinterland
Oh,
Harbor.
there we go. So if he draws a Thragtusk, we could be seeing it enter play in this game. So typical control matchup. Players just playing land. I see a Boros Reckoner in Gary's hand, so it looks like he kept those in.
So turn 2 Augur Bolus, turn 3 Reckoner is exactly the kind of draw I think he wants.
Yeah. Luckily for Brian, it looks like he might have a Supreme Verdict.
Yeah, he has a Verdict. But the trade's not even that bad for Gary.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's just sort of something he has to make most of the time.
Yeah, and, Gary did get a card off the Augur.
Right.
So it's basically going to be a 1-for-1. So it's not the worst thing. And, but again, with Brian really wants a Geist of Saint Traft or a Thragtusk. Doesn't look like he has either. He does have the Restoration Angel, which Gary has a hard time dealing with, but still, not the worst shape.
I actually like this line over the Reckoner.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty interesting because he's got a Jace in his hand, Gary, so he actually wants the Verdict to come down when he's about to hit 5 mana. That way his opponent will be tapped out when he tries to land Jace. So now he'll just present these 2 1/3s. It's pretty unlikely these guys will get a Verdict. Yep, obviously not getting Verdict if he's going to Spear one. So I imagine next turn he'll play Reckoner with 1-up, Thought Scouring during the end step or something like that, and then hoping to untap into Jace after a Verdict.
And Brian has a Restoration Angel in his hand, but he chose not to cast it. I actually like main phasing the Restoration Angel sometimes, just because you play around counter spells, and you're not really afraid of much happening on turn 4. Mini Jace is pretty much the worst thing that can happen, but again, you can attack it with your Restoration Angel, so it's not that bad. So might have unsummon, so he kept an unsummon.
That's a nice card to have here. It's interesting, actually. I kind of like the Restoration Angel on Gary's turn, but only because of Counterflux. Like, I'm hoping he has one, because it's, like, not that important a card if I lose my Angel, you know. If I'm untapping to a Thragtusk or something, it's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
It
ended up playing out perfectly for Gary, because,
yes,
like you said,
so.
if Brian might be very tempted to just cast the Supreme Verdict here, and Gary's going to be able to drop a Jace, but
with no threats.
The thing is, though, Brian does have a Thundermaw Hellkite, so if he's able to draw a second red source, and he's got a Counterflux in his hand too. So,
we missed our land for Gary. That's gotta sting. He knows this match could have been just like his on the spot if he had a land right there.
I wonder if Brian's regretting Searing Spearing the Augur Bolus. Seems a little early for that, but. He does draw a 5th land. It isn't a second red source. But again, you know, this is what you're going to have to deal with sometimes when you're playing 4 colors. You're not going to get the perfect mana every time, especially when you don't even have Farseed.
Now we're going to play our Angel that is trade. I mean, we may or may not get a trade. There are obviously a lot of options available to Gary. He has an Izzet Charm, so I would be first striking and dealing 2,
is it?
right?
Yeah. It's a reasonable play. Still might be afraid of... Still might be afraid of... a Jace, but I don't think a Jace really does much right now.
Right. If you have a threat on the board, the Jaces aren't nearly as scary, but it is kind of awkward to be passing with just 1 up, and you're like really vulnerable at this stage.
Like Thundermaw would be great if you can finally... No. Well, he does have a Searing Spear, which is at least something.
Yeah, that's fine. I'd be tempted to just rev for 2 while I know I can. Just get some cards,
well,
play a land tapped.
You could be falling into Dispel. You don't know that he has it or not.
You could be, but I mean, we actually are. You know, we don't have lands and we don't even have good spells, so I would be pretty tempted to just do it.
But the thing is, Gary did miss a land drop, so odds are maybe he doesn't have anything like that great. But again, does he not have Jace?
He has Jace, but he didn't play it this time because he was fearing a counterspell. Now we'll Sphinx to bait the counterspell, untap Jace you. Yeah, Gary's taking some nice lines here. I like them for the most part. He knows what's important in the matchup, and that's resolving Jace. Like, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. So it looks like we might end up just getting a Jace right here. Or...
Whoa.
Are you sure he's got Jace in his hand?
I was really sure. Maybe I missaw it. I was so sure, though. He's shuffling them too fast to confirm now. Maybe I'm just straight up wrong.
I'm assuming he doesn't have Jace.
I would be assuming that too at this point, because that's like the turn I would have played it on for sure.
So yeah, it doesn't look like a Jace is there. So we're gonna get a Resto.
Well, now this game looks way more awkward.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know what either of them are especially.
And here's a Wolf Run.
All right, now I know what one of them's
probably not going to activate. So tax in for 3. He's got Snapcaster for Counterflux in order to stop anything too devastating from Gary's side of the board. And he still has that Thundermaw.
Yeah, Brian's in good shape here. Snapcastering, Counterflux here for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the scariest card right now is Sphinx's Revelation, so I think this is a reasonable line. Threatening to drop Gary down to 10 next turn.
Yep.
So, looks like Gary might have a... Is it Charm Mizium Mortars? Yep, there's a Mizium Mortars.
Definitely have to cast that.
One-sided Wrath. Again, can Brian draw a second red source here to get a Thundermaw into play?
Dynamite.
Nope.
Not quite Dynamite.
Might try... Now he might just try to Sphinx's Revelation.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
No. So...
I think that was an ambitious wait.
Well, now it's going to be rough because now Gary has access to Izzet Charm. So, maybe he's playing around Dispel, but at this point, maybe he just cycles Azorius Charm.
Yeah, this is actually pretty bad for Brian. He's going to get Izzet Charmed, and Gary can even Snapcaster Tiny Rev if he wanted to instead, but he's going to just Charm. You can tell, he took a shock land. That, gave away he has Snapcaster for Rev, or Rev.
Yeah.
So Brian has to be a little scared now.
There's a Geist.
Oh.
So, that's...
it's a dynamic game.
Gary does have a Snapcaster, so he might be able to get some action going. But again, we know Brian has a Searing Spear, so he's going to be able to...
It's 2 snaps, so I think he may just spend this one on a Supreme Verdict, actually. It'll be interesting to see what he goes for. I think Verdict or Rev are the targets.
No,
he's going for Rev. I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah.
I would go for the Rev too.
Yeah, he needs cards here.
And he has another Snapcaster, so like, you know, he can get a Verdict again if he needs to, but if he just happens to draw one, the more the merrier.
So we have a Searing Spear on the Snapcaster, makes sense. Again, top deck red source, yes or no? Maybe a Thragtusk even. Not sure what that card is.
Borisrek, no? I don't know what that is.
Oh,
actually.
Assemble the Legion, I believe.
Assemble the Legion.
Hello! Now things get interesting.
I was gonna say, it definitely looked red and whitish, but yeah, that is an Assemble the Legion. That's at this stage of the game, I see that putting it away pretty easily. Like Gary's got no answer really.
Well, we'll see.
I mean, he'll have to find his own very quickly in order to match it. I guess Boris Reckoner can hold it off for a pretty long time.
Yeah, I think he has a Reckoner.
But
he's got Reckoner. He might have Restoration Angel too. Looks like he has an Augur as well. And again, I mean, if he still has the Harvest Pyre in his deck, so he could just randomly kill him out of nowhere. Yeah,
Gary's got cards. He's definitely like loaded up, but Kessig Wolfrun Assemble the Legion is pretty real. And that's not even talking about the Geisha Trap still in play.
Yeah, I don't know. If Gary can just get an Augur, I think if he just get a Harvest Pyre, I think he's got an Augur Bolus, he's got a Thought Scour, he's got the Reckoner already.
He can definitely do some heavy lifting with
He's got the one Counterflux to sort of help him.
All right, now he can actually, I think, start setting up.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna plan to Resto Angel that Augur. Holding up in Counterflux to avoid any shenanigans, probably. Oh, Reckoner? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hold up in Counterflux. It's the same deal.
Blocks the Geist.
Yeah, I would just be really wanting to dig with my Augur with the Angel, I think. But if we're not planning to run it next turn, then I guess it's the same difference, and this is probably more mana efficient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Muster, counter.
This allows him, the option of counterfluxing anything that he's afraid of. Not even sure he cares about Thragtusk, to be honest. I think he knows what his plan is right now. His plan is to probably just try to win with Harvest Pyre.
Yeah, it's going to take Brian a while to actually get the Allegiant through Gary's board. I mean, inevitably it will work, but it'll definitely take some time. And in that time, Gary can possibly assemble just a winning sequence.
Yeah, because I think he might have a Snapcaster in his hand.
I believe he does.
So between Augur, Restoration and Augur, Thought Scour, he might be able to dig to get either another Sphinx of Revelation or just get the Harvest Pyre itself. So I'm not sure he necessarily cares too much about the Thragtusk, but okay, so he just decides to not even bother thinking about it. Now Brian doesn't really have a good attack here, forced to pass back.
This does make Gary way more vulnerable to the Thundermaw Hellkite now. He doesn't have that counterflux. He's got to lean on the Snapcaster for it if he holds open enough mana.
Yeah, but again, he doesn't know
that it even exists, yeah.
Probably. So
it's one of the advantages of Brian's list for sure. You just get surprised. Gary would be very nearly dead to.
Counterfluxing the Thragtusk allows him to be a lot more aggressive. So. It makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely like how Gary's been playing this game so far.
Yeah, it's careful. I like his lines. He knows when to attack. He knows when to block.
I think he's questioning maybe a main phase resto.
Yeah. Maybe he really wants that Reckoner untapped with this new line he's taking. He just wants to keep everything Brian does from attacking him for a little while the Reckoner cuts him to pieces.
But I don't know. Do you really think... Would you have preferred to maybe dig with the Augur, or?
I would have before, but now that he's deciding to really attack and try and get in the damage, like this puts Brian on a semi 2-turn clock. Like he has to start blocking after a turn of this, and his blocks aren't great. Every block will just result in the creature getting eaten.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I don't know.
I think it's debatable.
I kind of like drawing cards, so
yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to see.
We just milled our Assemble the Legion.
Yeah, so it looks like there's a lot of cards. It looks like he definitely has enough to go for the Harvest Pyre kill if he ever gets there. But don't believe he has. I think he maybe has one negate left in his deck, so not that much permission. But he has a Snapcaster in his hand, so kind of play around most things. Oh, looks like he finally drew Jace. So
perfect, just like I said he would.
Does he continue to attack here and put the pressure on?
I don't know that I would. Yeah, it seems like you open yourself up a little bit, maybe.
Well, yeah, Brian's got a Sphinx of Revelation and a Azorius Charm. Looks like he's just going to take it. Gary's probably going to be forced to negate the Sphinx of Revelation with the Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah,
so
he has a negate and an Izzet Charm, right? So you can use either one.
Yeah.
Sphinx's Revelation, and yeah, he will counter that, which now means he has to actually like draw the Harvest Pyre or draw another Snapcaster Mage, right?
Yeah, he's gonna have to draw it. But again, he has Jace. That's like, you know, that can let him draw a card a turn. Not sure how long Jace will get into play, or if he'll even be able to resolve it. But
yeah, I'd have been pretty tempted to actually take 2, go to 8, and play the Jace. I mean, it seems dicey, but I'm not sure. Well, no, would we have died?
I don't know how good Jace is there, to be honest.
I mean, I think we can get 2 cards out of it. Which
he's going to get 2 more guys from the Assembly Legion.
Maybe 2 cards isn't worth the damage, actually. That's probably smart on Gary's part.
You know,
we don't need to sign in blood for 5.
You know, he has Snapcaster. You know, Brian has Snapcaster Mages. He has multiple Searing Spears in his graveyard.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to risk just losing the game, getting burned out. Because you know, we're still at the point where this is going to go either way. I mean,
for sure.
Ryan still might have the advantage, but Gary's close to kind of sealing this away. But
it's very tight. I think Gary's considering just revving for 5 here rather than countering Brian's rev.
Yeah.
Because like the 5 life obviously very valuable to him, and if he just draws a Harvest Pyre, the game will be like over on the spot. So
yeah, I
would actually probably be doing that. I think it seems a little stronger than just countering.
Looks like that's what he's probably thinking. Yep.
Oh, he's going to Snapcaster Rev. I thought he had one in his hand. So
No.
Or is that from earlier?
Oh, he forgot to exile this.
Yeah, they forgot to exile. They're correcting it.
Does he have another one?
I think he has one in his hand as well. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Maybe it's a Verdict also.
Yeah, it might be a Supreme Verdict. Can't really tell, but
yeah,
we know he's got a Snapcaster Mage, a Jace, and a Mystery card.
I'm going to go ahead and assume he's countering.
He's casting it. What is his target? It looks like it is a charm. Yep, so he's going to counter it. All right. So that gets countered. Brian untaps, gets 2 more Assemble Legion tokens.
Getting awkward.
So he's got potential of 11 in play.
Well, he's also can Wolf Run for 3 with his Angel token, which can't be blocked. So he can get in 7 period, and then it looks like 4 more. So it looks like he can attack for exactly 11 right now, which seems pretty good. I would be pretty tempted to attack. Obviously, it's pretty dangerous if Gary has an Azorius Charm or a Snapcaster for something. Then he'll just be dead, basically.
Yeah, but is Brian a gambler? That's the question.
Yeah. I get the feeling he's not.
Yeah, he seems like he's going to try to... It looks like he's going to try to win next turn. Like, he might try to say, all right, I'm going to try to set this up for next turn. I have an Azorius Charm. Maybe he still thinks that, like, eventually I could just draw a red and win the game with Thunder Maw. But again, you know, Gary has a lot of lands in play, so you kind of have to try to get a read here, I think, and try to understand what do you think Gary's line is. And it looks like Brian paid 2 to put the Hollow Fountain into play untapped, so he might just try to go for it now. Yep, it looks like he's going to go for it.
I like going for it here.
And again, we don't know exactly what's in Gary's hand. We know it's 1 Jace. Can't really make out the last card, but if it's nothing special, you might actually have enough to just...
Yeah. Oh, he shock landed, so he could get in 1 more,
yeah.
too. I don't know if I agree with shocking. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it's like, if he has a Azorius Charm, then you're just like dead on the spot anyway.
Yeah, you're not winning anyway, so... You lose to, like, Boros Charm Searing Spear.
I guess this is 9,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8, yeah.
Yeah.
I would shock if it meant, like, if I already had lethal, because then I don't have to Keswick Wolf Run until he proves he has an Azorius Charm or not, but...
He might just cast Azorius Charm on his own guys and make him gain a bunch of life.
That's also a reasonable line. He can do that and Wolf Run for lethal at the same time. What's he doing?
Oh, he ends up just putting
Boros Striker on top of the library? I don't like this. I don't like this at all. What are we doing?
Yeah, I'd rather just gain a bunch of life and try to kill him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even if you miss with the Wolf Run, you're going to gain enough life
that you're not dead.
That you're not dead next turn, and maybe Assembly will just kill him next turn. Then
We also should definitely be doing it to the Angel token, right? Like just to play on Searing Spear.
Well, either way, that was enough. Gary didn't have anything.
Good gamble on Brian's part. I pegged him wrong. I have to apologize publicly, Brian Zunter.
We are in Las Vegas.
Yep. I didn't think you'd shove there, and you did. Good job.
Yeah, you got to say, I think Brian kind of just knew I'm probably not going to get a better opportunity. If my opponent has a trick, I'm probably going to lose anyway. So I think it's reasonable that you just go for it there.
Yeah, nice lines. So that was an interesting game, even if we did, analyze the first 7 turns completely wrong. So for the Jace that I mistakenly identified.
Yeah.
But it was there eventually. That's all that's really important.
So again, kind of thought that game would. We kind of thought Brian would have the advantage that game before they even started, just because he's got better threats than Gary does. Gary did have a good start though. He got double Augur Bolus. Managed to resolve Strings of Revelation when he needed to. Drew multiple Snapcaster Mages, but wasn't enough to overcome an Assembly and a Geist-Saint Trap, which 2 of Brian's key sideboard cards.
Yep.
But again, Gary's going to be on the play now, so if he's able to go turn 3 Geist, that could just be enough. I mean, this matchup can be pretty silly sometimes if your opponent has a Geist and you just have no way to answer it. Especially when you're in the draw.
I do want to thank our tweeters for noting the Sphinx's Revelation was not exiled. I actually couldn't catch that at all. I could barely even see his graveyard, so I don't know how you guys did that. Good spotting. We got that corrected. I imagine largely because our director saw you guys, and we did not. So, excellent work from you guys. And to the query regarding Brian never having a 2nd red for Counterflux, Counterflux only requires 1 red, so that would not be necessary most of the time.
Yeah, he would have liked a 2nd red for Thundermaw Hellkite. But
Counterflux is blue-red. Staple a little Overmaster on your counterspell.
I wonder if Brian would be love to have a Chromatic Lantern in his deck. Would help him cast some of his 5 drops, and he would never have to worry about his mana.
I would never be that bummed to draw 1 with this deck, right? Yeah.
Why not? I mean, Augur Bolus doesn't seem that great when you only have 18 spells.
That's fair. I mean, maybe in sideboarding he transforms a little. No, his sideboard's all non-spells. Never mind. Yeah, I'm not so excited about Brian's Augur Boluses. To be fair, did we see any of them in game?
I don't think we. No.
He probably just boards them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18 spells is pretty light for Augur.
Well, he's boarding in a lot of creatures too. He's boarding in 4 Geist-Saint Traps. He's boarding in Assemble Legion that misses on it too. So
he's got Assemble Legion this time, I think too. Far left there.
Does Gary have another? Gary, 3 games, 3 Augur Boluses.
Must be nice.
And he hits.
Wonderful.
Oh, it's the first time I've seen him miss. So things not going out so well. Starting off so well for Gary, but
you got a 1/3 on the field.
Again, he's got the 1/3. So Brian seems to always be having mana troubles.
He's going to cycle Azorius Charm here and be able to play a turn 3 Geist if he hits land.
Yes. And it looks like Gary might not have an answer for it right now. So, does he have a 3rd land? That's the question.
Big draw step.
And there it is. Takes 2.
Take 2.
Does Gary have the 1 Counterflux? And it looks like he has an Izzet Charm. I do see an Assemble Legion in there, so...
They both have Assemble Legion?
It looks like they both have it.
This could get crazy.
It looks like Gary also has a Boros Charm. Looks like an Izzet Charm. Maybe he just starts digging now.
Yeah, I think he has to dig here. Brian does have another Geist, 2 Revs, and 2 Snaps. Is what looks like the remainder of his hand, in addition to that Assemble Legion.
Well, the good thing is, if Gary's able to draw one of his own Geists, he's actually in pretty good shape, because he plays the Geist, kills Brian's Geist, and then next turn he can drop the Assemble Legion. And we know that Brian is not only land light, but he's a little color screwed as well.
Yep.
Has no access to red. So, Gary doesn't actually have any mana, but Brian does draw a 4th land. Sadly, it is a colorless land that does nothing currently.
I think it's still a good card for him, though, because now he can Snapcaster Mage Azorius Charm if Restoration Angel tries to block Geist.
Yeah.
Which, it lets him make this attack pretty fearlessly, whereas before he might have had to debate it.
Yeah, it's certainly better than not getting a land at all, but he really kind of is... He needs a 5th land here because he needs to keep pressing the advantage here, because eventually Gary's just going to get an Assemble Legion in play, and it's going to allow him to start churning out cards that can actually block Geist. But
he should probably consider cycling Revelation this turn. He maybe even should have cycled it on his own turn in case he had a tap land.
Yeah, he might feel like tapping 5 for an Assemble is just too much of a do nothing when your opponent has a Geist in play and has 4 mana untapped. So
yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if he just ships the turn.
I don't know. If I'm Gary, I'd probably.
I mean, he also has a Jace.
Oh, he has a Jace as well?
So he could just play Jace and pump it, draw a card. Brian might choose to attack it. But realistically, I think Brian would probably cast Snapcaster, cycle Azorius Charm, and then kill the Jace.
I think... Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he has an Augur, so he can force through the damage, but he's throwing away a Snapcaster for that. It's tough. It'll depend on what he does with the Jace, I guess. We'll see.
But I think he wants to cycle the Azorius Charm just to draw land. Because we know he doesn't have any other land. So
I agree.
I think he wants to do that.
He mills Brian, not himself.
Which actually was kind of worked out for him because he wants to just draw land right here anyway. So
he is going to cycle that Azorius Charm, especially once he mills the second one. That makes this play much more automatic.
All right, so he just draws a 5th land. It isn't a red mana source, so...
no Legions.
Just draw another card, and it is another land, but not a red land. So
I'm still happy if I'm Brian.
Yeah, he can kill the he can choose to kill the Jace this turn if he wants.
Yeah, he'll be basically just trading a Snapcaster Mage for Jace, which is not the worst.
No.
And he's also not getting in the damage on Gary, but I think that's largely correct.
Yeah, I think he has to deal with Jace. He doesn't want this game to get out of control.
He does have a Revelation that he'll be able to fire for 2, which I imagine he'll do during Gary's end step.
Yeah, here I actually like not trying to force it through, just because, you want to... If Gary uses a Negate or an Izzet Charm, it means he's not casting Supreme Verdict or something, or Restoration Angel. So I kind of like just passing the turn. He also has another Geist that he can reload onto the board if Supreme Verdict ever gets cast.
Good point. He also has a second Revelation, so if the first one gets countered with untapped play land, he can play the other one if he wants to main phase that one.
Yeah. Oh, so it looks like Gary might have drawn a Geist Trap.
That was a good draw if he did. That's pretty much exactly what he wants here to just relieve the pressure.
I believe he has a Searing Spear, a Restoration Angel, and the Assemble. So it looks like a Brian's Sphinx Revelation might actually resolve here. And if you can draw a Thragtusk or a really just a red source, I think he really wants to drop the Assemble. But even still, Geist might just be better. Geist is just so good. Might just want to drop the Geist here.
Yeah, he obviously knows that Gary just peeled the Geist because it was way more efficient to cast that card much earlier. So he knows that Gary's vulnerable. And it might be time to just go for it.
So interesting play here. Does he drop the Assemble, or I think he's actually in better shape if he drops the Geist. But again, we know that Gary has his own Assemble Legion, so
I think he needed to play the tapped Hallowed Fountain and then play the Geist, because Assemble's vulnerable to Izzet Charm if he plays it now, and next turn he could just play it with an untapped land and can't Izzet Charm it. So he's running it out there, but he gets paid. Gary's got no Izzet Charms.
So Gary has a Boros Reckoner here, so probably just has to drop the Assemble there. Yeah, so he's got the Assemble there. So Brian's going to have a turn where he can drop a Geist. He still has a Snapcaster Mage. So
this is about to get really boring really fast, I think.
Yeah. This is going to be a bunch of dudes trading back and forth.
I mean, at least Bitter Blossom killed somebody. Right?
Yeah. So, again, Brian's still in pretty good shape. He's got a Geist, he's got another Revelations, he's got 3 lands, and he's got a Searing Spear, which he can also get back with Snapcaster Mage if he ever gets Gary in a position to just burn him out.
Yeah.
Which Geist can easily do very quickly.
I'd be pretty tempted to just play Geist here with my plan being to spear Augur down so that I can't get double blocked.
Yeah, and I also don't, definitely play the untap land. You don't really need to put your Holophant into play just yet. Play the Geist out there, leave yourself some options with Snapcaster Mage. And let's not forget, he also has a Wolf Run, which he can actually activate now. So
I haven't forgotten.
He can definitely just spend a turn. He's at 17, he can spend a turn just going all in on a Wolf Run to try to drop Gary low enough where Searing Spear, Snapcaster Searing Spear might be good enough. But he doesn't have double red, so it's going to be tough to do that just yet. But still, I like the line of being very aggressive when I have my opponent on the back pedal and I have a Wolf Run in play. Gary's
checking the situation. You know, these
seems pretty
legions,
happy.
Yeah, it creates a really interesting spot where the board's like stalemated until one of you clears them.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the first person to actually kill everything, like, actually falls behind immediately.
So it looks like he's going to plan to Resto Angel.
I think he's just spearing, yeah. He's going to spear that Augur, so now his Geist can attack.
Well, there's the Resto.
He's going to Resto, yep.
Yeah.
That's rough.
You have to think about that because, you know, what do you think Gary has there, you know, realistically? 3 to the face would have been so much more aggressive. I would have rather just done 3 to the face. If anything, you probably don't do anything, but at the very least, so what? He plays a Snapcaster. You just go all in on your Geist, kill both his guys, and then just like do a couple of more damage afterwards. So I think I would have preferred.
Yeah, there are a lot of lines there. I think I like the face as well. You're with Kessig Wolfram being nigh unanswerable.
Well, I don't think I would cast Searing Spear at all. I mean, I would just untap, play a land, and just attack. So what happens here? He double blocks. If he double blocks with like a token in Augur, then Searing Spear the token to make sure you don't lose to Restoration Angel. If he blocks with Restoration Angel and Augur, then just go all in with your Kessig Wolfram and kill both of them and trample over for some more damage. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, and then your assemble tokens along with Wolf Run should be able to finish Gary off.
Yep, no, I agree with you, and that sounds better. He's also, now that he drew this counterflux, into an interestingly stressed point where, like, you know, he wants to hold up in that counter spell, but he can't Wolf Run and counter spell. So, if I'm him, I'm probably tempted to just pass and not Wolf Run. Just let the attacks happen. Because he can fire a rev for, like, you know, 1 or 2 cards and still be able to counterflux something.
Well, interesting here that
ooh, this is
Gary actually didn't double block, so
now he's vulnerable to Azorius Charm.
Yeah, he can cast Snapcaster Azorius Charm, which I think is worth it here.
Yeah, because you get to hold up in the counterflux.
And you still have the counterflux,
Yeah, that seems awesome. I think that's what he's going to do here. That looks like Snapcaster.
Yeah, and he still has so much. He still has so much play because he still has a Wolf Run. He still has a Sphinx Revelation, which he can cast if things ever get, you know, crazy with you know, Gary actually casting a Supreme Verdict or something like that. But yeah, I definitely like the play of just casting Azorius Charm on top of the Restoration Angel.
Yep.
Plus, you take away Gary's draw step. You know.
That's actually like the most exciting part.
Yeah. So Gary's going to take 6 this turn, I believe, or no, 5. The 2 tokens.
Yeah, 5. 1 token and the Angel token.
Yeah. So Gary's token will trade. Augur stays in play. So
that token blocked by Augur dies. Yeah, we got it. Yep.
So
this one yours or mine?
So pretty good shape for Brian right here. He has the counterflux. He's gonna just Searing Spear Brian here. But again, don't need to do anything, Brian. Just take 3.
That's cool, man.
I think Gary might have Harvest Pyre. He might. Does he have Reckoner of Harvest Pyre in his hand?
I don't know. I don't think he has enough cards for it to matter if he does. I mean, I think like that's his plan over the course of a few turns.
I know he has a Boros Reckoner.
Yeah, he definitely.
And we knew he just drew a Restoration Angel.
And it looks like another Spear. So yeah, I think his plan is to like try and get in the burn for a couple turns, but I don't think it's gonna be
he does. I think he does have a Harvest Pyre. Yep, he does
right,
that.
That's fire.
So, you know, that explains the end of turn Searing Spear.
Yep.
So now Brian's just like, all right, whatever, do you want to do? I have the counterflux, doesn't matter.
Yeah. This could be very interesting. Big thing for Brian is that he has a hexproof creature to Kessig Wolfram if he goes for a kill.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge against Gary's removal.
And, you know, I think Gary might be in a position where he says, I have to go for it. I'm facing down a Geist and, multiple Assemble a Legion tokens next turn. I don't really have many avenues. He could try to just cast Restoration Angel, but it looks like he's thinking about just going for it. If he attacks, he's definitely just going to go for it.
I don't think he can do it this turn, though, right? Does he have enough cards? I don't think he does.
I'm not sure how many. He did. I think he cast Thought Scour. I don't know. He might have enough in his graveyard.
I don't know.
Oh, so
Snap, Counterflux.
Kind of sees with the Jig is up now. It doesn't really matter.
Yep. And note that he tapped out of all his white mana there, so that made the Counterflux probably much easier. It's hard to imagine a red spell that's...
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about Azorius Charm for his Keswick Wolf run. Although you still probably just go all in on your Geist, if you think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, it looks like Brian's close to tying this one up with a bow.
And he just drew another Azorius Charm. Might as well take two. He's going to be able to Wolf Run for 6, it looks like. So, yeah, with the Angel, I don't really think there's much that... Gary does have a Harvest Pyre to deal with the Angel. So, he's got a Harvest Pyre that can kill an Angel. He has 2 tokens that can block 2 Assemble tokens. Augur can block the Snapcaster Mage. Geist goes through unblocked. And that would actually... Yeah, I think Gary's actually dead this turn as long as Brian Keswick Wolf runs the Geist.
That should be a pretty easy puzzle to solve, to be frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary blocking to prevent as much of that Wolf Run as he can. Maybe just randomly dissuade Brian from doing it there, but that's not going to work. There's really no point to putting the soldier there versus another one unless
yeah, he needs to block. Yeah, if he blocks like that, that's fine. He's taking, I think, 8 damage if he Harvest Pyres.
He might be able to skirt a turn if Brian Keswick Wolf runs for exactly or something like that. But that would be...
No, it looks like correct. He's gonna Azorius Charm here, putting the Augur back on top of the library.
Why?
Taking away his draw step.
But it doesn't actually take away draw step because the Augur gives one back.
Yeah, but maybe just as long as he doesn't draw a Reckoner, that's probably what he's afraid of.
I think you just go for it. I can't think of anything that gets you. I guess I like Trickery.
Well, no, Harvest Pyre, I don't think it's actually, how much is it? It's for 4, 6, 5, 9. I think if he just Harvest Pyres the Angel token, he might survive it.
Sure, I think he survives it, but then you're not scared of
anything
else.
There's,
It's impossible for you to die, so why not just go for the full amount?
I don't know, I think this play is fine.
It looks like he had 6 cards before the Reckoner died, so very close.
So goes to 1, I believe.
He Wolf Run for 4 against that, right? So 5, 9, 1.
Yeah. So again, Brian's play I think is fine because he takes away a draw step. He has an Augur. Maybe he draws a Supreme Verdict off the Augur. But, he loses to Brian's Assemble Legion.
Well, that's 3 looks at a Supreme Verdict versus... But, I guess
yeah, but it doesn't, he says Assemble, so he's going to die anyway.
6. I feel like we don't... Oh, he Wolf Run the Angel. That was wrong.
Okay,
we shouldn't have done that.
Yes, in that case, there's really, no justification for that play.
I overestimated the ease of the puzzle on that one. Yeah, you definitely Wolf Run the Geist there. I can't actually... maybe there's some reason and I'm the dumb one, but I can't think of one. And I'm sure the Angel's way easier to kill or otherwise removed from combat.
Hey,
It's cool.
It's cool.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Who's got the
Still
chips?
had all these. Don't really... You don't have to play perfectly if you've got, this type of board position. Now I have to imagine he... Keswick Wolf runs the Geist. At this point...
Why would that be?
After... fool me once.
Shame on
you. Fool me twice. Shame on me. So you know Gary has a Restoration Angel in his hand because you put it on top of his library 2 turns ago. So swing with everything.
Yeah, and this is just going to be lethal. Like he can block like Augur on Geist and then 3 guys.
Now he's tapped out.
5.
So at this point,
if he blocks to minimize like all damage, he'll take 5 before Wolf Run. So.
As long as Brian doesn't Keswick Wolf Run Gary's Restoration Angel, I think he's in good shape.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, so Brian Zunter is able to beat Gary Wong 2-1, and it kind of ended up being what we expected. All of Brian's sideboard cards just showed up. Gary really didn't have any good answers to cards like Geist or Assemble the Legions.